Record.
Hi, everyone. So Scott and I, in February, and I have pointed a lot of people to it, with all resources and tools, it's always, eh, you get the benefit out of what you actually do. So, but we did it one, and I honestly, felt really good about the 12-step one we did in February. So if you missed that one and you have any questions about 12-step, specifically around this, because we find it complicated in S groups from the standpoint of there's more choices, like with AA, there, you go to AA, but so we answer that and a bunch of myths. And Scott, it's been so interesting since we recorded that, how many people wrote more emails, stating the exact things that we were discussing. So again, if you missed it, all of the webinars are on our website. This meeting is being recorded. Oh, I had to hit OK. It's all good. Sorry. I'm helping my daughter.
Tammy's flustered this morning.
Guess what the topic is? Overwhelmed.
There we go.
I know, because I was like, that just kept coming up. So I happened to be helping a family member move. And so I'm out of town, trying to manage work, trying to help move, trying to do all of those things. This is appropriate for me. And, I was going, what am I doing to take care of myself, et cetera. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to share some of this briefly. We've got questions from last month, but we would invite you in the Q&A at the bottom of the screen to type your questions in. We'll probably start with the new ones and then hopefully get to the old ones. But otherwise, I've found that we just keep shuffling them forward. So Q&A at the bottom of the screen, type them in. You can type them in as anonymous attendee. And if you would like, if it is helpful for us to know if you're the betrayed partner, if you're the person struggling with problematic behaviors, but also where you are on the journey. If like I just had discovery, gosh, that's a very different place than, or I just got found out, that's a very different place than, we've been on this and we're kind of stuck and it's been 3 years or whatever. So a little bit of tidbits on that. So I have to pull up my notes because I actually typed out notes on this so overwhelmed. And I was thinking about this from two standpoints, and I'm sure there's more, but in my world right now, I'm looking at overwhelmed with schedule. If I've got an overloaded schedule, I can feel overwhelmed and, I can feel the pressure I need to do all of these things. So some of the things that I have found that are helpful for me is if I make a list. And sometimes I go, oh my gosh, my list is so long. But then if I reprioritize and I go, like, it takes some intention. It's not like I have to do all of these things in order to be a successful human being. It's like, what is really on my list? What really needs to be done? Can this be done on a different day by someone else? There's a concept because, I usually I'll do it. Yeah. And so looking at it from the standpoint of, what really, really needs to be done. And there are things, like I said, I'm helping a family member move. The movers are coming tomorrow. There are things that absolutely have to be done today. And then there's other things that will be nice to do, but, we'll get around to them. So making the list and then prioritizing. And this is one of the traps I fall into. How important is it to me if I don't accomplish this list? Because if I don't get this done, like something else in life comes along, and particularly if it's not the priority that must be done, I can have emotional baggage that goes with that. I don't feel good about myself. I'm feeling like I was unsuccessful, that I've let somebody down, like all of that, those negative voices. And so it's really important for me to look at this realistically. I'm not a superhuman, it's like there's a limited time, a limited bandwidth, and so understanding that, it isn't that important. The other thing that I've gotten caught up in is the list is more important sometimes than relationships. I've found myself prioritizing, I have to go do this thing or I have to accomplish this thing rather than I need to connect with a person. Like the most valuable things in my life are my relationships. And I will sometimes set those aside because I perceive that doing some chore is more important. And so it's really being so intentional about, what my goals are, my life goals, not just my momentary goals, and how can I make those align. And then one of the things that the managing the feelings. So if I'm feeling like a failure, etc., how do I, realign that? And what do I need to do? And it's usually self-care, and it feels counterintuitive to take time away when you're already busy to do self-care. But for myself, I find, I already mentioned it, Scott and I are big on 12 step. The best thing I can do if I'm feeling overwhelmed and overloaded is take time out, go to a meeting, go for a walk, go do whatever, ideally connecting with other people. So to me, 12 step is super huge because it reprioritizes. I get perspective, I get gratitude, and I'm not feeling overwhelmed. Like I can't remember the last time I walked out of a 12 step meeting feeling worse than when I went in. So it really is something that helps. The other thing I was thinking about is overwhelming emotions, and I find these to be more challenging. Sometimes and it's usually negative emotions. I don't usually go, oh, I'm feeling so overwhelmed with, gratitude and joy that I just can't deal with it. It's like I'm feeling negative emotions. Someone says or does something that is, that feels hurtful to me, so then I can get all caught up in that. Um, Grief and loss and betrayal pain, those things are real and take time. But sometimes in the moment, we are feeling so overwhelmed by, big emotions, so giving ourselves some grace, doing the self-care that I mentioned earlier. Oh, and then and sorry. And one other thing that I thought of is thoughts that are looping. Like if I, and it can be about anything, including hurt feelings by someone else. I get so focused on whatever that is that I'm missing everything else. My world gets really narrowed if I'm focused on negative emotions. So there are things that I can do: self-care, self-compassion, especially if they're the grief and the loss and things. If you're stuck, the self-care, self-compassion is what outside help do I need? Maybe I need to talk to a professional to help me, move through and process some of those things. A gratitude list. I am a big believer in gratitude lists. I know for sure for me that I cannot be grateful and having those really big negative emotions. They are incompatible. And so if I'm finding gratitude, it softens, the negative emotions. It doesn't take away everything, but it shifts things. And it also gives me the opportunity to use my thinking part of my brain rather than the just reactive part of my brain. And then I try to remember that feelings are not facts. They have their space and they can have intensity, but I have to look at what the facts are underneath the feelings. I love Troy Love's work. Everybody knows that. And I know I have massive abandonment wounds, and I have all the wounds, some of them bigger than others. And to be able to identify, oh, that's my abandonment wound getting poked. That's my neglect wound getting poked. So I can do self-care. I can appreciate that. Yeah, I hear ya. And, I can move through in a different way. Just a heads up, his work group starts, I think, tomorrow. I can't remember, but he's got a new work group starting for guys. I love his work. I have found it so helpful for myself because if I can get it to my head of this is my thinking, I'm going to think about this, I'm going to take action rather than react. And I don't know about you, Scott, but if I react, it's usually not pretty. If I act, if I'm intentional, what are my needs and how do I take care of myself in this situation in a healthy way that's going to benefit relationships? I'm not going to have to go make amends. Like that's a much better space for me than the tornado swath that can happen if I'm in reaction mode. Fortunately, even in like seriously, it's this week is extra loaded, and I went to a 12-step meeting. I'm traveling. I'm meeting a friend who's in the program today that I don't get to see unless I'm in town. So even with all of this going on, I am taking care of myself in those ways. You're getting enough sleep. So I have to prioritize that because I got nothing to give if I'm completely depleted. So, and I will feel more overwhelmed. So that was my little bit of how do I manage myself to be in this overwhelmed, and is there anything that would be possibly useful for people? So comments, thoughts?
Sure. Yeah, you've seen me react. It's not pretty. So I had to make
We both
amends.
can. I mean, like that,
Oh yeah.
we're addicts, and that doesn't serve
Yeah.
us well, and it doesn't serve our relationship well. And
Yeah.
that's the really sucky part is like
Right.
in the moment, I do something, but it hurts
Right.
me and it hurts others.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. The big things for me are slow down. Just slow down, breathe, do a little breath work, in for 4, hold for 7, out for 8. Do that 3 times. Your blood pressure will drop like 10 points. And I've tried that. I've tested it on myself, and it does work. Gratitude lists. You didn't mention yoga, but a lot of people do yoga. I don't, but
I don't do yoga. That's why that I'll
yeah,
go for a walk, but I'm not
yeah,
doing. I mean, I agree.
meditation.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, when I feel overwhelmed, I have the looping thoughts and the emotions kick in, and I have to realize this is not reality. I can pause, I can reality check it with someone or reality check it with myself. And just, what am I feeling and what is the information that those feelings are giving me? If I'm feeling overwhelmed, that's information.
Yes.
I might need some help. I might need to make a list and prioritize. And I'm a list maker as well. So yeah, all of those are excellent tasks. So yeah, we have lots of questions left from last week. You
Yeah.
want to?
One of them was about the Zoom for the meeting. Did you
I
notice
saw
that?
that for
Yeah.
this week.
And I gave that person the meeting code, and the meeting was in process. So just double
Okay,
check the link if you would.
I
Um,
will.
um,
That's
and you just said something, and I was gonna. What did you just say before you switched gears?
um, we have a lot of questions from
No,
last.
it was right before that.
I don't know.
I don't know either. Oh well, if it comes to me, well, okay. So let's start with this. I strongly believe that centering prayer meditation is essential in sobriety and recovery to avoid overload and overwhelm. Keeping present in my higher power is also present in myself as actual moment are equally important. Staying present oh, I know what it was. It was the list. Just because it's on the list doesn't mean they have equal weight. That's what it was. It was, I have a long list, and some of them are, it'd be nice if that gets done, but it just isn't that. But the list I have to be mindful that just because it's on the list doesn't mean it's, a number one priority. So, but yeah, centering ground, I love the breathing. In 2 minutes, I can calm down. Walking is, EMDR came from walking, the bilateral, so walking, a brisk walk, I can have clearer thoughts. And so all of those things find what works for you. I mean, that's really what it is. Find what works for you. Have multiple things that help, because if one isn't working, go to the next. Don't just go, I give up.
Did you want to do last week's questions first or this
Well,
week's?
let's do these first, because
Okay.
otherwise we get caught in the yeah. So
Right.
is OCD a common trait in sex addiction impulse buying?
Obsessive compulsive disorder. Research suggests that OCD is common among all addicts, um, including compulsive shoppers, compulsive sex addicts, alcohol, drugs, as is ADHD. Both are common. We become more impulsive when we have OCD sometimes. Those can be linked. But it's certainly not a necessity. And it's, if you have OCD, it doesn't mean you're automatically going to be an addict. If you're an addict, it doesn't mean you have OCD or ADHD. But sometimes they travel hand in hand. And you need to deal with both separately.
Yes, and I don't know about you, Scott, but for me, I find addiction to be just, it's compulsive. I am not thinking things through. So there are people who have clinical levels of OCD, and then I think there's a bunch of and ADHD. I think addicts who are in active addiction probably have some depression and anxiety and OCD and ADHD. I mean, like, they would have traits of all of those things. And as we, as the previous comment was shared, like, the more we are mindful, the more we bring things in, the less we are likely to act on those things. Now, some, if you literally have clinical, levels of those things, working with somebody who understands and can properly diagnose the OCD or ADHD, whatever, and alongside addiction, not just your general nice, wonderful general practitioner doctor who hands you pills, making sure you get the right diagnosis so you get the right treatment, is a game changer. And for some people, and we find this with our clients too, that come to our residential program, they may need some medical, like they may be really struggling with depression initially, and so on a medication properly prescribed for a period of time, and then they can taper off of it because things have started to shift. So none of this stuff is like you do this and you have to be on it for the rest of your life. Make sure you're getting proper treatment and diagnosis. So the next question I find a little confusing. Okay, how much recovery is too much recovery for our bandwidth?
I think I understand this question.
Thank you, because I don't. Please share.
I had a guy, in one of my work groups, and he was in my work group, and he was in another work group, and he was in another work group, and he was doing individual therapy twice a week and group therapy once a week, and he was hitting 2 meetings a day. And he was feeling burned out.
Oh, okay.
And he scheduled a support session with me, and I'm like, gee, I wonder why. I mean, chill out, like, knock it down a little bit. Let's figure out what you're getting the most from, and keep those, and the stuff that's you're not getting the most from. He was feeling overwhelmed by recovery. He was trying to get well yesterday, as we all want
Yeah.
to.
Yes. Okay. Then, yeah.
Yesterday, then by noon today, I want to be well. And, there is
Yes.
such a thing as too much. But in early recovery, particularly with like substance addiction, where people are often unemployed, if they go to 3 or 4 meetings a day, that's good. They're not drinking, they're not using. Once they get some sobriety under their belt, they may want to get a job and rejigger the schedule a little bit. If it is overwhelming you and becoming, the law of diminishing returns kicks in, and sometimes it can almost be counterproductive. Reel it back, but sit down, consult with somebody who understands your addiction.
Thank you.
And figure out what you need, what you're getting something from, and what you're not, and then reprioritize. And part of recovery, and this is what a lot of addicts forget, is what we call green circle, which is healthy activities that are, yes, include recovery activities, but also include fun stuff. Maybe you need to walk the dog. Maybe you just need to sit down and play a board game with the kids, or, just do something fun to relax. So yeah, there is such a thing as too much.
Well, and like you're saying, if it feels like I'm just checking off the boxes, like,
Right.
because I want recovery yesterday, like you said, what are you getting out of it? Like, I get something out of going to the 12-step meetings. I always come away with something, so like, that's meaningful to me. But I love that you said, talk to somebody, because
Yeah.
we're addicts. We will, like, well, I don't need to do this, or Scott said I don't need it. Like, make sure you're consulting with somebody and reviewing your entire schedule about how you can shift this, what could be, better for you. Don't do it. My best thinking got me here. So, like, please get help. Okay. The next one, this one I do understand. My essay says he just chats online but doesn't meet up.
Yeah.
What do you tell guys that come to your work groups about that?
Sex addiction is not about sex. Sex addiction is about emotional escape. I am using sexual fantasy to escape my emotions, to escape the real world. If I'm chatting online, I get as high from the fantasy of chat as I get from looking at porn, or I get from being at a strip club, or even an affair. The high, the dopamine adrenaline rush, the intensity is the same. You know, AOL chat rooms back in the day, you've got mail, people's blood pressure would spike, their dopamine would spike just from you've got mail. Boom.
Mm-hmm.
Fantasy kicked in and they were high. That's why AOL chat rooms, or whatever that dating service they had was so, it was addictive. I mean, it was the first internet addiction was AOL. You've got mail. And it's all about the fantasy. So, and a lot of addicts have never had in-person sex with someone other than their partner. But that doesn't mean they're not cheating. If their sexual and romantic energy is being spent on someone other than their primary partner, they're probably engaged. I mean, that would qualify as infidelity in my world. I mean, everybody defines infidelity based on their own relationship. But yeah, chatting online is still cheating as far as I'm concerned, in my world. So Tammy, any thoughts on that?
Mine too. And unless he is asking you, hey, I'm going to go chat with other people right now in a,
Right.
in an emotional, sexual way, you good with that? And you're going, sure, please go ahead.
Yeah.
Then it's a secret. It's all the hallmarks of addiction is, like the secret lying, denial is I'm lying to myself first. And whatever he says, and I don't know, this is your situation, I don't know for sure, but most of the time, whatever someone says is the tip of the iceberg. There's always,
Right.
more underneath.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's on the Seeking Integrity website on the homepage, I think about a third of the way down, there's some online self-assessments.
Yeah.
He can take that self-assessment, and if he answers honestly, he can email me, Tami, Tami, at seekingintegrity.com, the score, and we can give resources based on that. But
Yeah.
I'm going to, regardless of what he's doing or not doing, your healthy boundaries are for your safety. It's not about his behaviors or punishment against him, but if he's not safe, make sure you're setting that up. We've had lots of webinars and things on that.
Yeah.
And just because he says it's all online, please get an STD test and tell him I'm going to go get an STD test. And he'll,
Right.
If he's all good with that, he'll go, oh, go, please, it'll be fine. If he's going, no, don't do that, be a little more worried.
There are a lot of addicts who this is part of their denial. Well, I'm not really cheating. It's only porn. It's only chat.
It's only chatting. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not really cheating. And their other favorite form of denial is what she doesn't know can't hurt her, which
Right.
is just ridiculous. Betrayed partners always know something is wrong. They may not know what, but they know something's wrong. And I'll ask those guys, did your wife ever say, are you having an affair? Oh yeah, all the time. I'm like, then she knew. So anyway, whatever.
Yeah.
Next one.
Yeah. Well, but if he was investing that energy that he's spending with other people online into your relationship, how much would that enhance your relationship?
Yeah.
Okay. Betrayed partner here, 20 plus years, last breakdown D-Day, August 23rd, latest D-Day 8 weeks ago. I'm very involved in Weetonglan and Seeking Integrity. So life-saving. Husband thinks he should be all better by now, even though he says Dr. Rob's AVR to me on rare occasions. I am better at self-care, but I still really cannot stop the betrayal brain train when it starts. I'm practicing everything I'm learning, but I find it a huge challenge. Yes. And he's still in active addiction. You had another D-Day eight weeks ago. You don't know when the next one's going to be because he doesn't have any kind of saying AVR. I appreciate that. It's all good, but it's checking off a box. It's doing one thing. So we talk about recovery is consistently doing the things that we need to do. Scott talked about, the green, circle, the 3-circle plan. We have to consistently, do what we need to do. He doesn't, he may be abstinent for periods of time, and I wouldn't necessarily count on that. So this goes back to, of course, it's hard to hold, safe boundaries for you when he's still in active addiction, but, firming up I do this all the time. This is my vest, my armor. But firming up what you need to do to take care of you, and just we've got lots of webinars on even role playing, on some of those topics. So hang in there. So glad you're here. There's
Yeah.
support.
Yeah. Mostly I deal with the addicts. And they're like, when is she going to get over this? And I'm like, it's going to be a year at least. And the more times you slip and relapse, the longer it's going to be. So you're 8 weeks from a slip.
Yeah.
You should not be all better by now. If you were all better right now, I would be worried. I would be, let's slow down. And yeah, just because he thinks she should be all better, you will be better in your own time. You will, and being better means feeling safe is how I'm defining it. There's no way you can feel safe if you cheated on you 8 weeks ago after 20 plus
Well,
years.
you had discovery 8 weeks ago. You don't,
Right. Right.
and even if it was August, that's what,
Yeah.
7 months, 8 months, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And like that's still so early in the process. We
Yeah.
talk about you should not, if that was truly the end of the acting out, that's still
Yeah.
maybe some sobriety, but otherwise kind of abstinence. Just not doing the problematic behaviors is only abstinence. It's not recovery.
Yeah, there's two great books that I recommend for both partners and addicts. One is actually written for addicts, and the other is written for partners. The one written for addicts that I think is great for partners too is Dr. Rob's Out of the Doghouse. The book written for partners that I think is great, not only for partners, but addicts, is Michelle May's book called The Betrayal Bind. They're brilliant, both of them. I would suggest picking up both of those and asking him to read both of them as well. Because I think you'll both learn a lot. I think you'll feel better about where you are in your process of healing. And I think he'll learn a lot about where you are in your process of healing.
And I would back up. He needs sex addiction 101. We have lots of guys that go running off to the Out of the Doghouse work group. Fantastic work group, but they're still acting out. They think they can circumvent I need to stop these problematic behaviors. I'm just going to build trust and she's going to get over it. And no, you need to go back here and get a foundation. It's like you were talking about earlier. They want to flip the switch. I want to flip the switch now. And I want to be, I want this recovery thing behind me. It's, we still go to meetings. We have decades of recovery between us. This is never going to completely go away. We still have an addict brain. We can just be an addict in recovery or an addict in active addiction. So,
yeah.
And there's really no in between. Like you can't go, well, I'm sort of on the fence. You're still then it's problematic. Okay. I'm the betrayer, married 20 years. Last D-Day was in August. I have been sober for 7 weeks. My wife has betrayal trauma. I get overwhelmed when my wife starts raging at me or starts to criticize for long periods of time, anywhere from 30 minutes to 4 hours. How do I deal with this feeling of being overwhelmed and intense shame of her behavior? Well, her behavior is a result of your behavior.
Yeah.
This is a client that would so benefit from our residential treatment program. This is like, I can't even imagine, how difficult this is for each of you. But, at this point, stop the problematic behaviors. That would be the start, but it's then addressing all those but yeah, we've done complete webinars on this topic. There's no easy little solution to navigating this, but treatment would be a really good option.
Yeah, this is a slow down, and that's for both of you. We recommend, and couples counselors in general recommend what we call a respectful conflict agreement. If you go to Seeking Integrity or Sex and Relationship Healing, type in respectful conflict. It'll bring up an article with an agreement. It's basically a contract that, two partners will agree to and sign. And it says, loaded conversations, 15 minutes, then we stop. 4 hours of loaded conversation to make anybody crazy. We get more crazy as we go. So, 15 minutes, we take a break, we come back, in an hour or tomorrow. And there are lots of techniques for listening and validating what they're feeling, which is how to, sort of nip this in the bud. But you're not there yet. You're 7 weeks sober.
Yeah.
Come to Inpatient, come to the Sex Addiction 101 online work group. let's get the addiction under control, then we'll worry about better communication skills. It's kind of second level recovery. But yeah, I mean, right now, this is what I tell the addicts that I work with. Yeah, I mean, you did it. This is one of the consequences. You're going to get yelled at. You have hurt somebody, and hurt people, you know, tend to rage and criticize and get angry. That's normal.
And like, this sounds like, oh, it's her fault and she's raging, but
It's
something
not.
tells
Yeah,
me, I know, no, but
yeah.
something
It's
tells
not her
me
fault.
that no, but it's also, I bet you're doing something that throws fuel on the fire, during
Could
all.
be.
So the pattern is not helpful for either of you, but unless you stop the problematic behavior, she's got
Right.
no reason to believe that you're going to change. So, changing in that moment, just going like, yep, but my behaviors have hurt her, Again, this sounds like a great candidate for residential treatment. We can help. Okay, I'm overwhelmed right now and I'm all day. Okay, my relation is too much for me, as I have chronic post-traumatic stress disorder, and when I take distance, my abandonment gets hit, and I get terribly scared, and I feel all alone in the world. But I don't want to lose the relationship. But sometimes it is re-traumatizing. What can I do?
This is post-traumatic stress disorder banging into an attachment style that says come closer, come closer. It sounds like you know you're anxiously attached, which means I want you close to me all the time. And yet this person that you want close to you is triggering your PTSD. And I hope, I really truly hope you have a therapist of your own that you're working with, because this is a deeper issue probably than Tami and I can. I mean, we give you some advice, but this is something that gets worked on and resolved over time, working with a good, experienced therapist, somebody who understands both addiction and trauma. Um, and I will just add that almost all betrayed partners experience various forms of post-traumatic stress disorder, at least the symptoms, whether they actually have PTSD or not. If it goes on for more than 6 months, they do, but they have symptoms, and that is from the trauma of betrayal. Now, a lot of betrayed partners also have earlier life stuff that feeds into the PTSD. Betrayal just makes it worse, and when you're anxiously attached, you are going to feel overwhelmed a lot. You can talk to a medical doctor. There's medications that can help with this. I'm not big on pushing medications. But if it's chronic, it may help you calm down enough that you can work through this and with your therapist. That's my advice. Tami, thoughts?
Yeah, and I was a professional who can work with
Yeah.
trauma and betrayal trauma and everything else. Now, I think is this week Troy Love's drop-in group for betrayed partners on Thursday?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So tomorrow, Troy Love is has a drop-in group for betrayed partners, and he talks about attachment wounds. And it's a drop-in group, so it's not recorded. But you can ask him, some of those questions, and I'm sure he will, with compassion, share some ideas, with you as well, about that. But yeah, there are techniques, EMDR, somatic experience, some things that can help lessen the trauma. But at the end of the day, healing those wounds, getting in a relationship that is problematic, but hanging on to it, because of fear, I mean, ultimately it's a disservice to you. So making sure that you're, intentional about, is this person the right person for me? And what will really happen if I'm not in this relationship? And looking at the other side of this, of like, I would have the opportunity to have a healthy relationship. I don't know. I'm just making this up, but
And if you
like,
stay in this relationship, what are the boundaries you need to put in place to keep?
yes, good point. Yeah. So I mean, you get to pick whatever you're going to do, but when there's that much, like, it feels to me like you aren't able to have a thought process about this. It's all about, getting caught in the emotion. So a professional can help you work through that. Okay, this is for you. Can you speak a bit about the three circles and what sort of behaviors go in each? And yes, he can, because he teaches this in the work groups. So
all the time.
yes.
Circle plans are also known as sobriety plans or boundary plans. We set these up for sex addicts. I call them red circle, yellow circle, green circle. Picture like a bullseye. You know, red is the bullseye, yellow is the next circle, green is the next circle. And after that, they're pretty self-explanatory. Red circle behaviors are my addiction. You know, I'm looking at porn. That's a red circle behavior. I need to reset my sobriety clock. I'm, you know, chatting up other women or men or whatever. You know, bottom line problem behaviors. Yellow circle is what we call the slippery stuff. You know, it's thoughts, feelings, people, places. There are certain neighborhoods that are not good for me to be in. I'm slippery if I'm in that neighborhood. You know, they're feeling. I need to know what my emotional triggers are: anxiety, boredom, loneliness, feeling manipulated. If I'm feeling anxious or manipulated or resentful, I'm slippery. I'm in danger of acting out. I'm in danger of wanting to numb that feeling. And people, you know, old acting out partners, you know, they're just people I don't need to be around. And even for me, things like watching the news is so upsetting that I don't do it anymore. I stopped watching the news about 10 years ago for my sobriety. I mean, I keep in touch with what's happening in the world, but I do not sit down and watch the news for an hour every night.
Me too.
Can't. It makes me insane. So that's yellow circle stuff. Green circle stuff is healthy stuff. It's, yes, going to 12-step meetings, coming to a webinar, you know, practicing AVR with your wife, which is a communication technique. But it's also things like, you know, engaging in a hobby, exercising, having fun with the kids, you know, and I, particularly with men, one thing that most American men don't have is a posse. Women often travel with the posse. Men don't. I mean, women often have a group of girlfriends who know everything that's going on and process their emotions. We don't as men. This is a green circle thing for most of the addicts I work with. You need to get 3 or 4 guys that you get together with once a week and you have coffee and you talk about real stuff. That's a green circle thing, you know, and usually those guys come from 12-step groups, but that's the 3 circles: red, yellow, green. Don't, slippery, do. And I carried my circle plan with me for the first couple of years of my sobriety. I'll tell you this, not because I couldn't remember the red circle. I knew what my acting out was. Not because I couldn't remember the yellow circle. I knew when I was slippery. I couldn't remember what to do instead. I needed a green circle with me. Oh, there's a coffee shop over here that people in recovery hang out at. I can go there and sit down for a couple hours and chit chat and stay sober. And by the way, I use circle plans for everything, not just my sex addiction recovery. I use it for my substance abuse recovery. I encourage my friends to have one, you know, for their substance. I have one for my mother. I do. I have a circle plan for dealing with my mother because you know, I have PTSD.
It's stressful.
Yeah. And yeah.
Yeah.
So any extra thoughts, Tami? Or?
No, so Scott and Kristen Snowden co-authored Life Anonymous, and that's 3 circles for living. That's just, you know, you don't have to be an addict. It's just good living. But I think it's super helpful, like you said, to have the, oh, I have a choice. I can make a different decision. I don't have to just fall into the rabbit hole of my, you know, compulsive behaviors. I can choose, you know, something else. And understanding that, you know, is a real shift. Like I didn't have a 3 circle plan, you know, back, but I remember carrying stuff, you know, I carried a, you know, whatever chip I had at the time, you know, I would carry that. And for years, I carried those chips because I needed that concrete reminder of, you know, I want to do things differently. So and with technology now, you could have your 3 circle plan on your phone. What do I need to do? Okay, got that. So, okay. This next one is, hang on, quick. After a year of therapy, during which I lied for the first 6 months, and then there was discovery, my PA is again with a new CSAT and still lying. I'm afraid to quit because he isolated me in the marriage completely. Also, I am not a good quitter, but I'm exhausted and don't feel I can keep on this roller coaster. It may be fun for him, but it's a real pain here. Which He will acknowledge tearfully and then keep on lying. Should I see a trauma person or a CSAT? I have no sex, never mind an addiction. To me, this is I would work on the trauma. So email me, Tami, Tami at seekingintegrity.com, and tell me where you're located, and that you're the person that's being betrayed. Because I will help you find somebody local to work with, on that betrayal trauma and helping set healthy boundaries. I mean, that's, unfortunately, right now, the record that I know of for guys coming to our residential treatment program is 11 years they lied to a therapist. I'm sure somebody else has longer, but they're lying to themselves, they're lying to their therapist, they're lying, to everyone, and they're not choosing treatment. Now, one other option that I just thought of is Dr. Rob does a one-time 2-hour expert consultation for the two of you. That can be really validating for partners. To understand, they're all organic. I don't know what would happen for the two of you, but it's an opportunity to have both of you sharing with Dr. Rob. He identifies the issues and gives guidance. Some addicts go, yeah, I'm not changing. That's really important data for partners. And then, sometimes the addict goes, oh gosh, like there is hope and there is help. And this really is a problem. I really do have some issues that need to be addressed, and they, get pointed in the right direction. I don't know what would happen for you, but I hear often from partners that they feel validated at least, and have data that they can start making a decision. But there's lots of support resources for you to help at this juncture. This is very, very hurtful and problematic, and he lies. So it's really, how do you have healthy boundaries for you, regardless of what he's doing, and we can help.
Yeah, and I will just add that if you're an addict and you're still lying, you need to up your game, and you need to do it now. So reach out to us. We have online stuff. We have those consults with Dr. Rob, which are great for breaking through denial. And we have inpatient, which, 6 straight months of lying probably means inpatient.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we realize not everybody will choose it. Not everybody, can afford it, but a lot of people can't afford not to. Like, they're going to lose a relationship. Some of them have problems at work because they're, using technology in an inappropriate way, or coworkers, et cetera. So it's easy to go, oh, I can't take the time. And, again, it's like the overwhelm that I started with. What do I really, really need to do? And if I need to reset my course, for the future, taking that pause, 14, 21, or 28 days, getting a solid foundation, working with the most expert team on the planet. I'm not kidding. Go compare and contrast. There is no more expert clinical team than the Seeking Integrity team to not just stop the problematic behaviors, but address the underlying issues. And some people, go, well, I'll do that if I, okay, everybody, but for some partners, they're going, I can't wait 18 more months for you to, fiddle around with this and not get the help. It's devastating to the partners, to the addict, to loved ones. It just is painful. So if you had cancer, would you go, yeah, I'm going to try some of these homeopathic, I'm going to try vitamin C for the next 18 months and see what happens? No, you go get the help you need, so. Other thoughts on that? Oh.
No, yeah,
Okay.
But that individual, definitely reach out to Tami.
Yeah. Do you? This is a good one. Do you suggest the addict shares how many days they have been sober with a spouse?
There are a couple of things that addicts probably should share with their spouse. One of them is the circle plan, which we described earlier. The spouse should probably have some input there. What about this? Why is this not in your red circle? One of them is, I went to a 12-step meeting today. You don't share what happened at the 12-step meeting. I went to therapy today. If you choose to share what was discussed in therapy, fine. If you choose not to, the spouse needs to respect that. And yeah, your spouse should know if you're sober or not. Hey, I got 30 days. Now, if you're an addict, by the way, don't expect your spouse to pat you on the back for having 30 days of sobriety. You go to a 12-step meeting, they're going to clap for you. They're going to give you a chip. Maybe they even have cake. Don't expect it at home, but your spouse should know. And if you slip, I'm sorry, you have to come clean. You owe it to not only yourself, but to your relationship and to your partner. They deserve to know. So yeah, they should know how many days you have sober. Um, if you're not telling them, why not? Are you hiding something? Um, that's kind of my answer. Yeah. I mean, but don't just, don't expect your betrayed partner to pat you on the back for 30 days or 60 days, because all you're doing is what you promised to do when you got married, which is be faithful. Um, so Tami, you may disagree or agree. I'm not
No,
sure.
I agree. I get a lot of emails, including he says he has X amount of
Yeah.
time. So the partner already, can be skeptical about that.
Right.
So yeah, but what I appreciate what you added about the if you have a slip, so it's,
Yeah. You
and
gotta come
but here's,
clean.
yes, come clean and say, yes, I had a slip. We like the 24-hour rule or whatever time frame that you have, but no more than 24 hours. And here's what I'm doing. A
Yeah.
slip is just more data, but I wasn't,
Right.
doing enough to prevent that. I need to look at what was happening for me prior to, so it's information. So it's like I'm on day one, but I'm scheduled an emergency, session with my therapist. I'm going to go to 2 12-step meetings or our drop-in groups or whatever it is you're doing. Here's my plan. So I'm coming clean, and here's my plan so that
Right.
I can course correct,
Yeah. Just one more thing about coming clean. I
please.
mean, the pain of relationship betrayal is more about the loss of relationship trust than it is about what you did or didn't do. Um, if you want to re-earn relationship trust, um, you got to come clean, even with the stuff you don't want to come clean about. The rule is tell the truth, tell it faster. Um, if you get asked a question, you answer the question plus the 6 follow-up questions. You just answer them because um, you gotta, and that is how you rebuild trust. Is by telling the truth. Even your partner would rather have you slip and tell the truth about it than slip and lie about it or keep it secret. Definitely.
Yeah. No partner wants to hear that you slipped, but they would rather hear it from you within the time
Right.
frame that you've agreed to than find out. And they will. Like everybody
Yeah.
goes,
Yeah.
what she doesn't know, doesn't hurt her. Yes, she will find out. Some like maybe not
And
about that one, but the next, whatever it is, and it
and
just.
after the first discovery, partners are Sherlocking. I mean,
Mhm,
nothing gets past them. So you got to
mhm,
complete.
mhm. Yes, and the drip of
Yeah.
discoveries is just toxic for the relationship.
Yeah.
Okay. My PA has never done disclosure, yet he keeps telling me all you need to know is that it was only porn. If I make a snide remark when he is staring inappropriately or looking at Twitter for hours, he says, it's just your crazy imagination. Is there a list for disclosure questions to help for me so that if I ever get disclosure, I'll know what to ask? Others have told me to hammer their husbands for hours. No, I can't ask one question. Oh my gosh. And
Um,
neither of those is helpful. Like honestly, both of those plans are so unhelpful.
um, it's just your crazy imagination. This is what we call gaslighting.
Yes.
Gaslighting is a form of emotional abuse. Gaslighting is where I am causing you to question your perception of reality. And that's what he's doing to you. It's just your crazy imagination. Ah, God. And he doesn't even realize how badly that hurts you. So I just want to acknowledge how we're feeling your pain with you, number one. Um, that's gaslighting. Number two, disclosure is a therapeutic process. Finding things out little bits at a time, death by paper cut, drip, 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 whatever, trickle truth, lots of words for that. It does more harm than good. There's a great book on the full therapeutic disclosure process called Courageous Love. I'm recommending books today. Apparently, it's called Courageous Love. It's a soup to nuts look at how to come clean and how to get all the information and why to do it. Right now, he doesn't want to tell you anything. And oh, by the way, if he's looking at Twitter for hours,
He's an
um,
actor. He's still active in
it's
addiction.
Twitter is loaded with actual porn, and it's also loaded with what we call not porn, which is the bikini pics and the low cut dresses and the whatever. If he's looking at Twitter for hours, I'm sorry, that's what he's doing. He is acting out, and that stuff, if I'm using it like it's porn, it's porn. Period. So he's still acting out, and all you need to know it was only porn. That's a form of denial. I'm not really cheating. It's only porn. Then why does it hurt so bad? Why are you keeping it secret? It hurts me. That's why you keep it secret. That's why you blame me and tell me I'm crazy for, this guy needs treatment. I mean,
Correct.
sorry, I try not to give
Yeah.
those jobs. This guy needs treatment.
No. Yeah. I mean, I did put the Porn Addiction 101 online work group,
Yeah.
and that would be a start. But I had somebody that reached out recently that said, he went to some work groups and all that, but he's still acting out. And it's like the work groups didn't work. And I said, I never say that the work groups are enough. I always say they are supplemental. Many therapists that do this work recommend them in conjunction with the work that they are doing with clients, not as a like a 90-minute once a week where, I mean, Scott, you do a great job with the work groups, and Angela with the Betray Partners, etc. But the work groups are never going to be enough for a 24/7 issue that is decades old. Is stopping the problematic behavior is truly the top layer. It's addressing them, the underlying issues. So unless there's a real plan, I'm traveling, and I there's a meeting in this location called a daily reprieve. I found that when I was looking for meetings, while I travel, and every time I'm here, I go back, and I love it because that's what I have, a daily reprieve based on the work that I am doing. So if I went to a work group once a week for 90 minutes and that's all I did, that's not a daily reprieve. So we, kind of full circle to what you were talking about earlier with the overdoing recovery.
There's underdoing.
Early on, you can't overdo.
Right. Yeah. Once a week is underdoing. The first thing out of my mouth with work groups is, you're going to introduce yourself to the group, and I want to know if you have a CSAT and if you're involved in 12-step recovery. And if they're not, I start harping on them to get both. Because we need daily effort, especially early in recovery.
Okay. We've got lots, and they're good questions. Betrayed partner here. My husband is an intimacy anorexic, sexual anorexic. He is seeing a CSAT and was in denial almost 6 months about having IASA. As of January, he now admits it, but he has dysregulated to the point where he wasn't talking to me for 2/3 of March, more than half of January and February, and most of December for starters. He is going to 1 hour of therapy per week, 1 CODA meeting per week, and independently working on Help or Heal workbook. He is doing what his therapist recommends, but he wants to do marriage therapy. But I'm not ready. That's key, since there is no safety or stability in our marriage. I just don't think there is an appropriate amount of recovery work in recovery, because he's 6 months since starting with a CSAT and he's still frequently acting in. I find it's so hard to find information pertaining to sexual anorexia. Is this a typical recommendation for compulsive behaviors?
We don't typically use the term sexual anorexia. We prefer intimacy avoidant, which goes to an attachment style that often pairs with addiction. I am intimacy avoidant. Hey, I'm also an addict. There's a lot of work to be done. You're right. You say you're not ready for marriage therapy. Well, guess what? I don't think he's ready for marriage therapy either. What he wants to do is blame issues in the relationship, and the issues are, his issues are with him, and they have to be dealt with first. He's seeing a CSAT. Okay. He may need a trauma specialist to go with that. Intimacy avoidant people tend to have a lot of trauma, early life trauma. And we always say, marriage therapy undertaken too soon can be counterproductive, because it takes the focus off of individual healing. And he needs some individual healing. You probably could use some individual healing. You deserve some individual support and healing. And you can always reach out to Tami at seekingintegrity.com. She has a list of stuff she can share with you for betrayed partners. I'm guessing his acting out behaviors are probably pornography. That tends to be when you're intimacy avoidant, how you do it, but it could be like paid sex or online. You know, let's get him to up his game a little bit. We have lots of stuff for him. Coda's great, but why isn't he going to a sex addict meeting?
Yeah.
I mean, Coda's like kind of skirting the issue a little bit. Yeah. Reach out to us. We can point to all sorts of options for treatment. Tami, thoughts there?
No, yeah, like my whole thing was trust your gut. Like, I'm not ready. Like, that is key. Like, if you are
Okay.
not ready, if there isn't enough said. And yeah, and I hope you're getting support for you, because I hear the pain with that too. So okay, so my spouse showed me his 30-day chip. He said they don't give 60-day chips, so he didn't get one after 60 days from day one of SA. So he lied. I mean, I go to
Um,
different meetings, so like
yeah.
they have different chips. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that one?
He may be in a group that doesn't give a 60-day chip. I don't know. It's possible. I mean, all my groups that I go to give a 60-day chip, but I live in California where we clap
Yeah,
after everybody shares, and we
yeah,
love to give we love our validation here. The
yes.
East Coast is very different. If you clapped on the East Coast, they would look at you like, "What is wrong with
Really?
you?" That person
Oh,
just
interesting.
poured their heart out and is crying, and you're clapping. It's like, so I don't know. But most groups, in my experience, do give a 60-day chip.
Yeah, it's usually a 24-hour, 30, 60, 90-day chip,
Then
usually a
six
6-month
months,
chip,
and
and then
then
a
a
year, and
year,
then
and
annual after that.
yeah,
So, so
yeah.
yeah. But like Scott and I talked about in February, you can go to other meetings and you can pick up a 60-day chip there. So okay. Um, so how long should it take for an addict to work step one? It's been about 6 weeks and we're 18 months in.
Oh dear. Step one is we admitted we were powerless over our addiction and our lives become manageable. So on one sense, we work step one the moment we ask for help. The moment that as soon as I say, "Hi, my name is Scott. I'm a sex addict and I need help," I work step one. On the other hand, when we officially work step one with the sponsor or a therapist or a work group or whatever, we answer a lot of questions about our behavior and how it's gotten out of control and how we keep continuing it despite consequences. Um, that should take about 3 days when you get into recovery and get a sponsor. Um, 18 months, even 6 weeks, way too long. Yeah, sorry.
Do you find, because I keep hearing, people are on the first 3 steps. Like I hear this a lot, and
Yeah,
it
yeah,
doesn't matter
that's
which
the
12 steps. Yeah.
three-step do-si-do. Oh, I have a
Oh,
problem. I
no,
think
no
that's
sponsor.
yeah,
She,
no
yeah,
sponsor. There's the problem.
yeah.
I have a problem. I need help. I'll get some help. And then I relapse and I say, I have a problem. I need help. And they never do the rest of the work, which is steps 4 through 9 is the heavy lifting of recovery. And then 10 through 12 are like maintenance steps. Life Anonymous, my book with Kristen Snowden, talks about the 12 steps, but yeah, he's not working his recovery if he doesn't have a sponsor and hasn't done step one yet. Sorry.
And how does the big book address that? Half measures availed us nothing.
Right.
So,
And that's it. I'm going to check a box. I'm going to, tell you I'm doing this, but I'm not going to do any actual work.
okay,
If
last
if
question.
nothing changed, this is one of Tammy's favorite
Yeah.
sayings. If nothing changes, nothing changes. And
Hmm.
something has to change. And that means
Hmm.
he has to do some work.
Well,
Uh,
or healthy boundaries for you. Like
yeah.
we have no control over anybody else. So
Right.
what do I need to do to take care of myself, regardless of what that person is doing? So, okay, this is the last question for today, and then we'll save the others in case we can bring them up next time. As a partner of an SA, it's hard for me to tell the difference between my safety boundaries and controlling, and telling my husband what not to do. It feels the might be the same in different words. It is not. Healthy boundaries for you are what are my needs, and this is please journal them. Please check in with other people. I've done support sessions. Scott maybe has too, with people to talk through their healthy boundaries, and so they're not punishment against anything else. And it isn't you need to do this. It's like I need to take care of myself. And if I mean, when I do, for my safety, it is helpful for me to see you going to 12-step meetings, and then I can be closer to you, so it's not like you need to go to 12-step meetings or else. It's like, I'm taking care of me. So if you're not doing the things that are going to build trust, then I'm going to be over here taking care of me. I have to, because that's for my safety. So we talk lots about this, and honestly, the Empowered Women's Retreat, like we talked for hours about internal and external boundaries, but also in that I included the work group that starts, I think next week, with Angela Spearman. They talk about how do you set healthy boundaries. You have no control over him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have acted out in the first place, but nothing you did or didn't do caused this. Nothing you do or don't do is going to stop him. That said, you taking care of you, sometimes addicts start pushing up against those boundaries and go, wait, this is different. And, but, Dr. Rob says this all the time, and I agree. Don't say, if you act out again, I'm going to divorce you. And then not, because yeah, don't say something that you don't mean. So that's why it's really important to work with somebody that can help you identify what your boundaries need to be for your safety, your needs, not wants.
Two important things about boundaries. Well, I'll give you three. Number one, healthy boundaries are not about keeping other people out. They're about letting them in safely. That's number one. Number two, healthy boundaries are not about controlling someone else's behavior. They're about choosing how I will respond when someone else behaves in ways that upset me. And number three, go to our YouTube channel, type in Debbie McCrae. She has several webinars on boundaries, and she is on it.
Yes, she's actually is the one that teaches them in the retreat, and even the facilitators are going, that's so good, just like, and I know it feels, but guess what, addiction is lack of boundaries, and addicts are really good at annihilating partners' boundaries too, and so they get eroded, and so learning to set those back in place is difficult, but the healthier. Our mutual friend Matt Wheeler talked about one time on a webinar. He said the healthiest relationships have the most boundaries, and I kind of went, huh. But he said, then you know what the expectations are. You know what works for each other, so it makes sense. It sounds controlling, but it's not. It's respectful of myself and others in the relationship.
Yeah, it's about letting and being let in safely. That's what boundaries are. That's all they are.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much, Scott. We'll do this again in 2 months.
1 month.
Oh yeah, we do. I keep thinking
we do it every month.
I do the every other month with a topic. Right. So, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed. I'm gonna go take care of myself.
Okay.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.